All right, welcome everybody. I'm Lewis. You already heard and saw me a couple times during this marathon. I will be commentating the LEGO the Hobbit run from DaHamster. The category that DaHamster is running will be no levels early, no cut. So I think I will explain a little bit about the category once we are actually into the run, because a rather long one, still with no cuts. So I would say if Hamster is ready and look like he's ready, I'll give him a countdown. So let's start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, and the game started. And the first thing actually was really important. You saw that Hamster was actually on a specific title screen. So this game has two title screens. If you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, um, Lord of the Rings has three title screens. This game has two. Basically, is in which movie you are. It gives you a different title screen, and it's actually important. And okay, we're back. And it's important because one title screen is a bad title screen, the one from the first movie, which gives you like a really long intro, which you can't skip even with no cut. So you have to do a little bit of manipulation, like setting up your files correctly to get the good title screen, which you get if you basically load the file that's in movie 2. Great Kingdom of Middle Earth. Beginning, not so much going on here. And just some walking around doing basically intended stuff, just quicker. And yeah, not much to talk about the first beginning of this stage of this level. I think we can talk a bit about this game in general. So if you're familiar with The Hobbit, of the novel, um, it got its movies, and it was 3 movies. Sadly, only the first 2 movies are in this game. I think it was promised to have a third part as a DLC, the 5 Army part, but never got released. So you're only playing through the first 2 movies of this game. And up next is Gem Skip. It's actually a really important skip here. So you can see in the middle that one of the dwarfs is hammering on an anvil, and there's a big cutscene which plays where the dwarf runs away and the door in the background shuts. But what we actually can do is we can ground pound next to the other player and get him past the cutscene trigger. And it's a really finicky trick. So, so he activated the cutscene. He was not at the correct position. It's like a really big hitbox there. But now the door closes. If Gem Skip would have worked, it could have skipped this part here. But since you can't skip this part now, it's a good thing that we can talk about resource gathering. So in this game, you actually have to get some resources. You can see Hamster is collecting some gems here, and you can build stuff with the resource you collect. You can collect rope, wood, stones, different parts, and he uses those resources throughout the run. And that's actually a pretty big part of this category, which is resource gathering. So you should know where to get the correct resources and stuff. So let's talk about the actual category Hamsters running. So until 5 days ago, I want to say, this would have been an any percent run. But if you're familiar with the other games that were shown off, you maybe saw some out of bounds triggers that were hit. So it turns out those triggers also are in the hub word in certain games. And Lava Fang actually found a trigger that skips right to the one of the last levels. And it makes this run only 30 minutes long. Hamster actually got the record today. It's the first sub 30 minutes. But since the schedule was done before this skip, we decided we will show off the whole game, which then was renamed to No Levels Early. It's still super broken, and you will see that later. And No Cut, as you saw, for example, my Lord of the Rings run, or the Lego Batman run I did, is a G code that you can enter in any save file, and it allows you to skip cutscenes on a new game file from the beginning. And this skips like roughly an hour, I want to say, in this category. So it's like really nice. You don't have to sit through a whole hour now. Okay, in this part of the level, he collects with P2. He's doing 1P2C. He actually did this already in the first. Run, first the previous room. Now I can talk. And basically, he's controlling both characters at the same time. I'm not familiar with the playstyle Hamster's using. If he's using 2 controllers or controller keyboard, but he is controlling right now both characters at the same time while he's using P2 to gather some more resources. He's mining those rocks so he can do a next section, which is like a build section. So he has to put in the resources, and he gets to this screen where the game shows you some Lego pieces, and you have to select the correct Lego piece to advance state or advance this phase. Okay, I got confirmation from the chat that he's actually using double controller. So yeah, also this room also has an out of bounds trigger, but you can't hit that one sadly. But pretty nice if you could hit that one. And now he's going for the Arkenstone. And another feature is you can see that when he's mining, like he has to hit the correct button at a certain time. So you see everything is gray, for example, here. And there were some parts that were blue, for example. And once he hit it at the correct spot, the stone or what he's mining instantly breaks. And so you want to actually do that to save time, of course. And up next is the next like piece of tech that's exclusive to this game. That's actually like hovering, flying, Hobbit flying, whatever you want to call it. So there's this mechanic that you can buddy up. So you can basically buddy up with player 2. And once you start spamming attack, what you can do is you start to hover. You don't fall. You have certain set of frames that you just can like hover over the air, and you're gonna see this here. So by doing that, he actually skips the right side of this room, and he has to hover fairly close to the camera actually, because there's a death plane, but he can just fall through it at the correct spot and finish this section. So the next section, he actually has to go behind this door. Oh, and he's going for the launch. Nice. So there's a launch, a VSync launch here you can do, which you basically change VSync from 30 Hertz to VSync off at the specific, at the slope, at a specific part of the animation, and launch the upwards. And because this game doesn't have any flying characters, they never programmed, or in most cases, they don't program any ceilings into the rooms. So you can just launch his way over the gate and hit the trigger from behind. So really nicely done. And he's doing the same here. So he's doing 1P2C to break the statue there. And you already use this time to buddy up with player 2. So you can initiate a Hobbit launch or a Hobbit fly to the other side. You need both characters at the other side. You can also launch over there if you want to, but since you need both players anyway, it's actually faster to just fly there or hover there. And this section actually finishes with the auto-scroller. So as soon as Sam skips the cutscene, he finished this section with an auto-scroller, and he's done with Great Kingdom of Middle-earth. So not much to do here. Just running, you're forced to run. You don't have to like press any direction besides left and right. Can try to avoid a mini kit, which he probably will do, because lose some time. Ah, he gets it. Also remember to stay hydrated. Drink something from time to time. And yeah, that's Great Kingdom of Middle-earth, the first section done. in or less than 10 minutes. And like basically, if you familiar with like Lord of the Rings, like you have to travel across the Hobbit, and it's really nice in this game. Like it's actually pretty. You will like realize what like cities is in and the overworld stuff. It's really nice, and you can also see that he collected some not mini kits, some resources with the other player, and is in this section. This section, for me, I felt always kind of boring, but it has a cool strat in the second part of the level. But basically, you have to do one core, and then the door opens, and the next dwarf comes in, and you repeat that over and over again. And the good thing about N0CUT is we can skip all those cutscenes where the dwarves arrive, because like every dwarf has like a cutscene where he has to do something, and it's all most of the time the new dwarf is used to kind of like unlock the next dwarf. And like in the previous level, he used 1P2C, which is pretty standard amongst LEGO games, and also resource gathering. So another thing with like the new Any%, we don't have to do resource gathering anymore, really, in the new Any% run, since we only have one of them. But since this snow level's early, we actually see a fair bit amount of resource gathering, which adds another layer to this game. Up here, he has to grab some food, prepare that dinner, and afterwards is like it's intended to be an auto-scroller, but actually Hamster found a pretty cool way to actually skip half the auto-scroller there, which you're probably gonna see here. So you saw he dropped in, or he was dropped in before, and now once the plate falls to the goes to the other player, it's gonna drop out. And what this drop out does is it will make this section a lot quicker. So you're supposed to press the buttons that you see on the screen, but instead of pressing the buttons all the time, it just throws it to the next section. Also just saw that we're right around 1000 USD, so thank you again for everybody that donated and just participated in the whole event.
Do you
Thank
mind
everybody.
if I read the donation?
Sure thing.
All right, it's a $124 donation from Chimkin that reads, "Let's get the total up to a nice round 1,000. Big thanks to all the runners and organizers and everyone that has supported the event this year. I'm very happy with how this ended up, and I can't wait for LEGOthon 2022. And we are now at $1,000 because of that. So thank you very much, Chimkin."
Thank you, Jimkin. Yeah, really nice. Like I said, thank you to everybody who participated in any form. Like, is it doing layouts or commentary or restreaming, running, donating, or even just be there and support the runners. It's a blast. So yeah, already finished with section 2, and now it's on our way to the next level. So as what you can see in this section now, Hamster isn't playing with 2 players, so he gets most of the resources he needs, like in the next few minutes, so he doesn't have to like bother with going out of his way right now, and he's on his way. Okay, now he's collecting some more resources. So since you have to walk there or to the next section anyway, if it's like a fairly simple line, so as you can see here, it's mostly just walking forward with player 1. You actually can focus way more on player 2 to get the resource you need. Because this game, with the hop word, you can move both cameras individually 360 degrees. And it can get pretty confusing, but it looks like he's managed that all right. That's pretty good. And okay, so this launch he's doing here is a body up launch called. And basically, if you have like a collision between you and the other player, and you initiate like the body up mechanic, you can see that one player tries to run to the other side, and it launches you if you do it correctly. They can feel kind of random, but they're consistent if you do them the same way every time. This next section is now, by the way, he skipped like a whole section there. It just, all he has to do in the previous section is getting an apple and giving to the ponies or the horses. But just launching up there, we can get the apple early and advance this stage, which is like a flashback to the fight against Azog. And it's kind of those levels where you have to do certain waves, defeat certain wave of enemy, then the path clears, and then you defeat the next wave of enemies, and it ends with a boss fight. Also, you can use the body up mechanic, of course, just to attack, which gives you a stronger attack, and you can deal with the enemies way quicker like that. And the other thing is, he doesn't really have to like do much 1P2C, because he can just body up player 2 and control both characters with one controller actually. So both are dropped in, but he doesn't have really to do anything with them. We're going to see here, yeah.
Can I pop a donation in real quick?
Yeah, sure.
All right, we have $13 from Gamago that says donating this to ruin Chimkin's perfect 1000. Thanks to all the runners, organizers, and restreamers for a fantastic event. So proud to be part of this community. Thank you for the donation, and thank you for ruining the perfect 1000.
Well, Chimkin, if you donate $487, it's a nice 1,500 again. So just putting that in. Can do with this information whatever you want. So yes, Hamster here still in the fight, so it's a really long section here. There would be an out of bounds trigger, which is barely not in reach. You wouldn't need to launch into it. You can almost hit it. But since it can't be hit, we have to sit through this here. But it shouldn't take too much longer anymore, because you can see on the top he has to defeat like 3 green guys, 1 golden guy, and he's doing this, of course, with 1P2C to make it way faster. So yeah, up to the next section, which is the Azog fight, and this actually has some skips in it, so you're supposed to push blocks and stuff, but you can also just like jump to the upper section. And you can see also that he bodied up a couple of times because there are two different like animations. You can either be side by side or on top of each other. And he actually wanted to be on top of each other so he can jump with player 2 to the upper floor early. Nice, precise jump to get on top here early as well, else you would need to push this rock. It's falling down. And as you can see, he already has player 2 positioned for the next phase. And as you can see, you were supposed to pull down a thing, jump on top of it, and go to the other side. But obviously, because we speedruns and we like to skip stuff, we positioned ourselves already at the perfect spot for the next phase. And that's the next level done, so we're already 3 levels down. Hamster on its way to the next level. Taking a bit of shortcut. Here you're supposed to walk around everything, but you can just go right beside the river to make it quickly to the other side here. And I believe we will be doing a Hobbit flight again, or will he build this section here? I know you can fly over to the other side of the river. That's what's currently done in the new Any%. Let's see. Another thing here is like if you're at the steep slope, you actually can't jump anymore. So you saw there that he slowly fell into the river. That's why. So if you just think, why didn't he jump there? That's probably why. A little bit more resource gathering here. And yeah, he will be doing the flight here. So instead of doing one of those build section where the game gives you different pieces you have to drop in again, he will be doing a Hobbit flight to the other side. And they can be really finicky if you body up and you land on certain walls or collision. Sometimes it just drops it and you just fall down. But he was able to start off the flap from the barrel and he can make it across the river, not having much issues with that. It's also important to note that by doing that, he actually saves some resources because he would need some resources to start the building section. And now in Rosemutton. And he's going for it. Nice. So there's pony skip in this level where you can actually roll out of bounds with a launch and go to the final section. So he will attempt a launch with both players at the same time. So he has to roll onto a slope. And it looks like he will get it. He gets it with one player, so we'll attempt it with the other player again. It's possible to get this done with both players at the same time, but those roll launches are finicky since you have to be at a specific point in animation to actually get the to actually get a launch. And trust me, this will still save time overdoing it the normal way. It looks good. Should give him a launch. Probably a little bit too early there. So every character has like a different window. Basically, you want to aim with the back and the neck are touching the ground more or less. Yeah, he gets over the invisible wall and he can go all the way to the end of the section. And he's actually doing this, he has to have specific characters. So he made sure that he had the correct characters here so that he can only rescue the left pony. There's also a pony on the right side, but the game never intends you to skip the left pony first. So the game only checks if the left pony was rescued, and it doesn't really care about the right pony. So it has its checkpoint markers, so it says the right side pony is freed, so it allows you to go to the left side, and then if you free the left pony, it will say, okay, there, he freed this pony, it should be good. But we can actually skip the right side, just going straight to the left side. Again, the body up mechanic is not only used to break the game, you have intended section where you actually have to hit while being bodied up. Just even a word, while you're on the back, or yeah, while you're with a body, let's call it that way. And just basically here, there are 3 trolls you have to fight. And like the order is always the same, you have to start on the right side, go to the left side, and then to the back side. You have a little bit of mean time, so you can see the left troll is stunned. So use the mean time to get some resources in, and now you can fight the last troll. So this level consists of 3 parts. You're right now at the second part of this cutscene. If you follow the movie storyline, they get captured again. They prepare them as a meal. So we now rescue some of the dwarves, or we rescue the dwarves, and we will finish this section by actually getting Gandalf, and he destroys the rock, so the trolls turn into stone, because if a troll is exposed to sunlight, they turn into stone. Here's another force build section. Since he has both players dropped in, he actually can do those really quickly if he gets like a good RNG. Like the pieces he has to drop in are always the same, but the wheel actually is different every time. So some players like just to spam every button and go around with the joystick. Other players memorize the pieces and quickly like scan over it to know where all the pieces are, and as soon as they see where the piece is, they already know which direction to press, and because it's always the same, you also know which the next one will be and already prepare for that one. Probably faster doing it that way. I like to spam it because I'm too lazy to actually remember or memorize everything there. And with that, we're already done with the next level. So this game goes by quite fast. Still one of the longer runs, especially with no cut, but since it's so intense, it's actually pretty 1P2C heavy with the resource gathering. And it looks like we might... Okay, we should be back. Okay. So we should be back. See, maybe some difficulties. Just doing okay. Yeah, some technical difficulties. So. All right. Looks like we're off again. And he missed the perfect spot just by a couple of pixels. So he had to do 3 hits instead of 1. So let's see. Yeah, he gets it perfect here. Saves some nice time. And the next level you can start by doing this section here, this forced build. So now you should be able to see like why resource gathering is so important. You want to know where to gather resources. They are available basically everywhere you need to build them. There should be the resources close by, but if you have meantime and you can just gather some resources like in the meantime, you can save a lot of time. They should now have every resource it needs. Yeah. So you can see again how he memorized where the pieces are, so he can quickly snap to them as soon as he sees what they are. Yeah, that's, if you don't know, that's how you open the door. You build a giant key, and instead of using the key to unlock the door, you break the door. So pretty iconic scene from the movies, or also the book. Like, it's the place where Bilbo gets his sword Sting and all the other swords. What you have to do is there are 3 treasure chests, and you have to break them open and get them every time. Another like new mechanic here. You can feed one dwarf, a specific dwarf, to actually fill up his belly, and then you can jump on his belly, and it acts like a trampoline. And again, just using good 1p2c, so he doesn't have to walk from one section to the other section all the time. Also, the targets, you can see some of them are a square. Those will be used, the square ones are actually slingshot targets. And there are also round ones which uses the bow, something that can be quite irritating at the beginning to figure out why it's not working anymore. That's most likely because the wrong weapon was used. Yeah, square equals slingshot. It's also most of the time they have like a small bag underneath it. And in the next section, the first section, we actually have Radagast, the brown wizard. We will see him quite a bit during this run. There's a couple stages, and he acts more or less like Gandalf, but he can cure diseased animals. As you can see with the black and purple bubbles flowing above like his rabbits. He can actually cure them. And this section is getting cure 5 rabbits. And while he's doing that, he does actually a pretty tricky jump with player 2 to trigger this warg. So he can cure this rabbit. And again, during the animation that's playing, he uses his second player to prepare the next section and back to resource gathering. And now he finally can cure the last rabbit. So once he cured them, he will be on the next section, final section of this level. Which actually ruined the idea of having a damageless challenge of this game, because you're forced to take a hit here. But now with the new any percent, we can skip this section, and this game now has the possibility to actually be done damageless, which is pretty cool. So if you're into challenge runs, stuff like that, you can take a look at that. So while he's playing with, or while he's doing stuff with Radagast, you can see on the right side, he used a body up launch. And so he tries to get stuck between the rock and the wall. And by spinning around, he tries to get a proxy, so a launch where the hitbox tries to push him out, and because he's stuck, it just launches him. Pretty nicely done. Didn't know about this strat. I generally use the launch, VSync launch, to get up there. But of course it's faster to do it that way, since you don't have to change VSync and you can do it while doing stuff with the other player. And it's partly he gets up there so he can actually hit this warg and orc on top and doesn't have to do any puzzles. Now I'm curious, so Hamster actually found the trigger for a cutscene here, which he could go for, which then would save him some time. It looks like the screen is frozen now. Okay, we should be back. Okay. It doesn't look like he's going to do cutscene. Trigger early. We'll see. Ah! Ooh, he's going for it. Nice. So the cutscene trigger is actually pretty high up, but he can launch all the way to the top of a waterfall, and then he can fall down and into a trigger, which then allows him to skip, I think it's 30 seconds if done properly. So it's not a really huge skip, but it's a really nice one. And I'm glad that he's showing it off. So he will initiate a roll launch here. This slope. This launch sim should launch him. Only a small launch. So again, every character is different for the launches. It's different animation for every character, different timing. And they're also FPS dependent. Okay, and he decided. Okay, I thought he would stop it, but still going for it. This could work. I'm not familiar with this launch here. Gets the correct height. Yeah, it looks like he's just opted out of it, doing it the normal way. Don't blame him for that. So we would skip all this walking here. Yeah, especially in the marathon. Like, nerves are an issue to consider. You're gonna be nervous, and it's totally fine if stuff like this happens all the time. So next, going to level underhill and overhill, if I remember correctly. Really cool level, really broken. It's like a level where you're supposed to do parts on the top side, then you do stuff on the lower floor. So you break stuff on the top floor so you can advance to at the lower floor. And then you advance on the lower floor, and then you can advance on the top floor again. But with the flying, we can just fly around the obstacles and we can launch around them. Really fun level to do an IL on. And it looks like he decided to go for the launch here. Same I do. Might be a little bit late for launch. Let's see. I know, gets it perfectly fine. And he launched, so this big rock. You can also just fly around it, but you saw that fly, like the Hobbit flights, are actually kind of slow, but they're easy. And what you also see here, he's actually on the slope right now, so you can launch here. And he launches all the way to the top. But sadly, clips through the floor or to the collision, which isn't solid everywhere. Might look like you can stand certain stuff. Double checking if VSync is at 30 Hz. This looks like a good animation. Yeah, gets a nice launch at the top. It actually lands inside here. Thus, as you can see, Hamster always needs to be sure that he has the correct characters. It jumps around the cutscene trigger here. Nicely done. Because you might think just do it with character XYZ, but you need the correct character because there are still obstacles and puzzles we do, and we want to have the correct character, of course, for that. Here, doing a small launch. Okay, that's good. Luckily, Hamster also pretty good at the Xbox version of this game, which doesn't have all those VSync launches. So even if it doesn't get all the launches first try and has struggled a bit right now, we still know some backups, which is really good in this case. And again, here he needs to body up so he can destroy this thing. And this should end the level. There's a small section here, but it's just spamming buttons. And with that, we're already at the last level of the first movie, I want to say. Might be wrong in that end. No, there are like 2 more levels if I remember correctly. Next up will be Goblin Town, and I think Goblin Town is one of Hamster's favorite levels. Either that or he hates it, one of those it is. But I thought he likes it. Could be wrong. As you can see, they really got like heavy with the co-op strats here, so that you have to use 2 characters or body up. Okay, so he actually likes it. Does the VSync launch here? So if you go along with the movie plot, you're now in Goblin Town, where Bilbo actually gets the 1 ring, which will be at the end of this section, or the next section, where he has to do the riddles with Gollum. I gets it for not quite first try, but still cool to show off all those strats that Hems is using. And he also goes for this strat. Okay, it's gonna be amazing. So you can launch behind the door here and hit the trigger from behind. It's really tough, but I think he has a setup for it. And barely overshoots it, looks like. By doing so, he actually can do the whole section for 1 player only. It doesn't have to bother with bringing Bilbo along. He can just do everything with the orc. Another thing you can see, if you launch really high, the camera gets locked. So it's really hard to tell where you're actually going. So you need some setups for this, and setups are usually you count like 1, 2, 3, D-pad up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, D-pad left, stuff like this. Barely overshoots it. It's like really slim where you can land. It's a really tough trick. Okay. And was able to show it off. Nice. So just really skip. You can jump top of here and basically skip everything. And it's actually something Hamster found. Well, it's quite new to LEGO speed running. It's one of the first like big skips I think he found. And you're on a boss fight here. So this trigger is like this level is one of the exceptions where it actually has a ceiling, so you can't launch like really out of bounds, because the trigger would be pretty close by actually, and it would be not too hard to hit and skip everything here. But since this level has a ceiling, sadly we can't do it. The first phase done. On to the next phase. It's a lot of downtime in this fight. I can see the round target, which means he needs a bow, another slingshot, another body up hit. Yeah, a way to skip this fight would be really amazing for this category, since it's a rather long fight with a lot of downtime where you don't really can do anything with player 2, you can't really resource gather, just have to wait. You can prepare, of course, for the next section what DaHamster is doing all the time, so he knows next thing gonna be a wizard thing, so he needs Gandalf. And he already prepares player 2 Gandalf while player 1 is doing the body up thing, so he can do the hit at the end really quickly. So this is a cool section where you have to do like a little bit of the section, then you go through a transition and it teleports you to another section, but still in the same map. So you can see some parts where you go through in the background. Sometimes you can see parts where you went through in the background. So if you keep an eye out, you can actually see like certain sections. Oh, I didn't know this was possible. Yeah. Jumping on the railing there to skip building the bridge. And instead of doing puzzle here, I'm guessing he will fly over it, since he already spotted it up. Yep. Does he need to start on kind of an elevation? because like if you just try to walk like off the edge, most of the time don't fall off it. But if you're a little bit above it, like on a really tiny surface like this railing here, you can initiate the fly. And basically the fly is just spamming the attack button. Probably could time it, but chance of losing like the flight is way too big if you do so. And you can also change direction if you press the new direction while the animation is playing. But then you have to release the animation, so you don't have to press anything on the control stick between the actual attacks, else you're gonna fall down. Down to the next section. And jumping around the gate, nicely done there. Onto the rock. Skipping another section. But he has to have 2 players at the other side. That's important that you can't buddy up with Gandalf and the dwarf. There has to be two dwarves or 2 hobbits. Basically 2 like small characters. And now he has 2 players over there, so he will initiate the next roll. Or the next fly actually. Or a launch. Oh, that was quick. He's still falling. I missed it. They changed VSync on because VSync off gives you like an insane launch. And you don't really need a really big launch. So you see now he had VSync on 60 FPS, VSync on, and he still got a really nice launch. So this game is one of newer games. It's actually console viable. Console isn't the fastest method, but you can still get a really competitive time on console. Since as you saw, 60 FPS is more than enough to launch at certain spots. And he's walking on some invisible scene here to actually go to the next section. It hasn't loaded in yet, but the transition is there. Changing back to VSync off. And another fight section. It is pretty long level. Pretty intense. If you take away the fight section, it's really cool. Cool movement, cool stuff. Just that the fight section kinda tend to be too long. There's this level and the next level, and then I think we're out of movie 1. And not much you can really do here to speed this section up. Showing off some nice flights here. Yeah, you basically have to wait until reach a certain point. But now we should be in a little bit more interesting level. Next one's gonna be barrels out of bounds. Shows some really cool amplitude at the beginning. And then some cool launches and skips later on. Actually, there's a level between them first. I always forget about this level. Quite common in this game is that like a level ends or starts with an auto-scroller. Not much you can do here. You can get a launch sometimes, which launches you over the trigger. It's your soft lock, but didn't happen here. That's good. And time for another. Doing a launch here to get to the right side of this section earlier than intended. And you also see that he needs both players over there. So he does the V-Sync launch of 2 players at the same time. Same as he did in Rose Mountain. He gets it with 1 player. We'll probably wait until he falls down so he can do it with the other player in the meantime. Or actually goes back, does it with both players. Kills the Borgs because they mess with you. This looks good. Pretty synced up. So yeah, gets launched with both players. And looks like they're actually almost at the same height. So yeah, he actually launched different spots. So he launched to the top so he can actually push the boulder, and then with the other player he actually moved to the right side so he can grab the stone and initiate this cutscene or camera pan here, which teleports your player to you, which is really important because you could go all the way to here, but there's actually a spot where you need to use a pole to climb higher, and the spot isn't active if you haven't triggered this camera pan. So once he defeated all the wargs with the fire bombs, he actually has another fight against N0CUT5, which all those fights are very similar. You have to hit him a couple times, then you have a prompt where you have to press certain buttons, can advance to the next stage or phase, and rinse and repeat. And hit him a couple times. Since there's some downtime, he uses time, of course, to gather some more resources. There are quite a lot of boss fights in this game, but once you get to the later section of the games, they become way better in my opinion. There's still a really bad one. The level is called Necromancer, quite at the end. It's like a really long one. It's like super cinematic and super cool looking, but most of the time you're just sitting there waiting. But that should be the end of the boss fight for at least a little bit now. Like once you finish with this level. Again, has to defeat all the enemies, all the orcs, trigger the next phase. Which is again like a wave he has to kill. And that's the end of this level. Really nicely done. I get introduced to the fast travel mechanic, but we're not going to use that. It's really cool looking, but it takes you up to the sky and flies all the way to the actual like trigger you selected or location you selected. And now we acquire logins. And again, like the previous section, this level starts off with an auto-scroller. There's some really cool 1P2C and really fast second room. Going for some swag mini kits here. Have to make the auto scroll interesting in some way. Okay, so now I'm curious which strategy goes in this level. There are quite a lot of different strats you can do. There's a pixel jump you can do. There's also some launches you can do. I think Hamster goes for the pixel jump. It's not actually like only pixels, it's just like a really small like place where you can actually jump again. But before he can do that, he actually has to complete this puzzle to knock off the key at the top of the hut. So the trigger for this section is actually right behind the door or inside the door. So if we could find a way to get behind there, it would be possible to skip the whole section. There were attempts made. You can launch out of bounds. There's like a really small part where partially inbounds and out of bounds where you can walk, and you could then fly in theory to the trigger, but it's never been done before. Again, hoping for the correct animation here, and it does launch. Same mechanic as he did in the level where he was playing with Radagast on the left side and with the dwarves on the right side. You get a bigger hitbox if you body up, and then it pushes you by spinning. Your hitbox gets pushed inside an object and it forces you out, and it launches you upwards. And now we have access to the horses, which makes overworld movement way quicker and way nicer. This level flies in Spider. You want to have two specific characters you need. Uri, which has a slingshot, and he positions himself again in specific spots, so he actually gets launched with a body up launch, so he has like a small collision between him and player 1 and player 2, and basically it's the same as like the body up when you're spinning. Once they actually connect, the hitbox gets way bigger and it pushes them out, forces them out of the object, and you fly into the air. It decides to opt out of this strat and go for a backup strat, which is just flying over. And you can see now the difference. The launch is quicker, but the other one is more consistent. Almost gets it there. So since you only have two characters over here, we can't actually complete this section in the intended way, so we have to launch over, because you're supposed to build a fire here. almost. Like I said before, those body up launches can be really finicky. It tries a different spot now. Like they're consistent if you get like on the correct spot every time. Since it's like a Lego game, it can be really hard to actually get to the correct spot every time. Going for the V-Sync launch now. It gets you really high up. But like I said before, you actually need 2 players. And it's a really tricky one because there's water, and if you're not landing at the perfect spot, you actually fall into the water and you respawn on the other side. Gets 1 player over there. I would landed in the water there as well. You also can see how high the actual invisible wall is, so you actually need a really good launch to get to the other side. This looks good. Okay. Now you can start a Hobbit fly all the way to the other side. So you're supposed to shoot the targets. There's a target where you need a slingshot character, which we have. There's also a target where we need Bilbo because he has the ring and can use it to go invisible and destroy or build specific objects with like ghost bricks. And there's also a target, not a target, a wizard spot in the background. But by having 2 characters, we can just hover over to the other side. So this is the first time you actually see the ring in use. So you can't go past the spiders unless you're invisible. And this level is really unforgiving, especially this part. You can launch and skip the spiders, but you don't get a new respawn point. And if you try to do it all the way from the beginning, it is possible to go all the way to the end. There's also a level end trigger, but it's really hard. And if you fall, you spawn back at the start or at the intended point where you're supposed to be. Also worth noting with all those VSync launches, they're in this game extremely precise and hard. So other games, let's use Lord of the Rings as comparison. They're quite forgiving actually, but in this section you only have a couple of frames. You actually are able to get a good VSync launch, and sometimes they just stop working and you do them the same every time, but I decided nope, not gonna work. Also, this is another sectional level which actually has a ceiling, so you can't just launch all the way to the top and then just fly to the end or fall to the end. You can only launch so high, and it's high enough to make certain gaps, like the one hamster is trying to launch over right now. You'll see, like, because he went on with one player, doesn't have the player that he needs. Also decides to do it one player only, which gives you higher FPS. So if the launches were because of the low FPS not working, a good idea can also be because this game sometimes just doesn't like to give you launches. Okay, gets it finally. Nice. Let's go. This is another section like the roast mutton where you're supposed to rescue all the dwarves. If you just rescue the last one, actually finish the level. Basically the same as just rescuing the left pony. Luckily those spin body up launches are way easier. The only bad thing is that you need to get the correct animation. So like I explained earlier, you want to have the animation that they're next to each other and not on top of each other. And there's, to our knowledge, no way to actually manipulate which one you get. So if you played Lego Batman 2, for example, there's also the grab mechanic there. And again, there sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Same here, sometimes you get the good animation or the animation you actually want, and sometimes it gives you the other one. And both animations are used for different things. So if you want to jump to a higher ledge, like in the N0CUT level, the 4th level or the 3rd level, you want to be on top of each other, and this level you want to be next to each other. And done with flies and spider. No, flies and spiders. Another mechanic that's both in Lord of the Rings and this game is that there are different states of the day, so you can either be at night or at day, and you can switch kind of freely. All you need to do is sit next to a campfire and watch or wait through this loading screen animation. There it actually is, and it will change the state of the day. And you're actually forced to do this here. They introduce you to do that here because during the day, I think there are guards here, but at night you can just go through this. So next barrel's out of bounds. Cool one to see you're actually doing here. So you have to get the barrels at the correct spot. And as you can see again, there is a round target, which means we need a bow. We need to get a bow. We don't have a character that actually has a bow. So the way around that is that we actually have this force build. It's been a while since we saw them the last time. They're really heavy at the beginning to really try to hammer it into you that this is a mechanic. And at later section or later part of the run, they go really smooth on you. And they don't have that many force builds anymore. That's why you don't see that much resource gathering anymore. We get the bow, and once the barrel is at the correct position, we actually can move on to the next section. Still have some meantime, so gathering some resources. So here we use this push to launch us upwards, so we can go to like the end of this section. You're supposed to go to the left side first, but if we activate this lever like on our own, we actually can skip the whole left side. And we're onto another old scroller. And there's quite common crash that occurs in this level. So this level is infamous for its crash. Luckily with the new advanced trigger we can hit, we can actually skip this level. The other good thing is, because we saved or we're playing with saves on, we don't have to do the first two sections of this level anymore. We can straight go back to here. I actually think it's not common to crash 2 times in a row. There are theories why this crash occurs. This depending on VSync and specific paths you take or activating certain triggers. But in the end, I think all speculation. We don't really figure it out. And I think we're past actually the part where the crash normally happens, so we should be good. So once this final orc is defeated, we'll actually go on foot again, skip out of the auto scroll section kinda. Not much to speed up this part, just take a tight line and destroy the bridge or the dam at the end. Because of the crash, the no cut actually was reset, so we have to put in no cut again. So you actually see like putting into the code so we can skip the next cutscenes. Yeah, and it remembers. And you should see a question mark popping up and unlock, which means now you can skip the cutscenes again. For all of those who hasn't seen any no-cut action yet, now you see how to get the game to run without any cutscenes. It's normally done before a run on a different save file, so you don't lose any time during the run to put in the code. But of course, since the game crashed, we got rid of the code and had to put it in again, unfortunately. And you see, we're able to skip cutscenes now. Next, we're going into Lake Town. Lake Town consists of basically 3 sections. I think the game considers it as 4 sections. So you break into the weapon chamber to get some weapons. Then we have a section where with 2 dwarves, and the final section will be with 2 elves, Legolas and the other elf, where we have to fight N0CUT again. But this time it's a different fight. It's not just in one static room. We actually have to progress through the level. As you see there, Lego games really like to use the same button for everything. So grabbing the shovel is the same button as actually digging. So if you're not positioned correctly, you can actually like throw the shovel away. And that's what happened there. So here, while he's doing the rock, or not the push puzzle, he actually positioned the other place so he can do a launch to actually go to the top and skip some sections on the downside, because once you actually grabbed one of the weapons, the level advances, so you can't go to the top that easily anymore. all we have to do now is go all the way to the left side, top left. There are all launches you can do to get there, but the intended way or semi-intended way, it's not that much slower anyways. Nice launch he gets here. So you want to launch on top of this building to skip a rather slow section. But again, you saw that if you're launching really high, the camera gets really, really weird. But he gets it second try, really nice. And this jump is way harder than it looks, so really nicely done. DaHamster side here. So you have to jump out and turn back in, and you have to do it correctly. Else if you just be a little bit too slow, you don't get this. It's a really small window you can actually get in there. But I did it flawlessly. Now we're in the final section of this level, which has an out of bounds trigger as well right at the end, and you can go all the way to the end of the level, like pretty early. You're forced to do this section because there's not really a spot you could launch to break out of this section. And the trigger's also barely not in reach, like a couple units, can't jump high enough. Need like 1 or 2 units higher jumps to actually get there. It's quite unfortunate. Skipping some arrows here. Just making this section a tiny bit faster. After this section, he has to go all the way to the background. You can actually see it already. But it's a little bit more to the right side actually. It's also important to note that maneuvering out of bounds there with launches is pretty difficult, but basically you see those 2 barrels at the bottom right, like the bottom of the screen, and it's just a little bit above it. And next level done. And now we're at the part where we would do a skip in the any percent. So this is level we can actually activate early. And by activating it early, another thing that's happening is we're not placed in the first room of the level. We're actually placed in the last room. The last room is a really quick one. So instead of climbing all the way to the top here, what you can do is just do a launch. You only need one wizard at the top. And since both wizards has more or less the same abilities, we can just use Radagast in this case, or Gandalf, to launch our way top of this rock formation. Should be good, yeah. And here it just needs to use like the wizard power to get to the next section. So by doing the out of bounds trigger, we would skip all of this, and you can see that it saves quite a bit of time. And there's actually more than one trigger that we can hit. And right when it was found, we were able to hit the trigger for the second part of the level, with this part here. But then we found a way to actually go to the end section, like the trigger that's behind the trigger we initially hit. And just a tough jump, it's not really hard. So give it a couple tries that you will get it. And skipping all this is, of course, really nice. So again, we need Radagast here because he's the wizard that can cure the animals. We need that for this puzzle to actually solve. This is one of the other levels that actually has a ceiling in it. It's quite unfortunate because you can launch rather easily in this section, and all you need to do is launch over the gate. But since it has ceilings, you can't just easily launch over it, sadly. But it doesn't take long to actually do this room the intended way or in a quick manner. And now we're placed right where the trigger would place us, and we can actually double jump out and it actually spawns us at the bottom, which is really nice. So we can skip the whole level here by just double jumping to the end. we go through a depth barrier, but we're close enough to the next section that the game thinks the respawn point should be at the bottom. And now we're in any percent territory. So from now on, it should go really quickly by. By finishing, basically we're right at Riverdale right now, or we were, and it teleports us all the way to Dol Guldur, the bottom here, and we activate the level, and the level is called Necromancer, and it has the boss fight I mentioned an hour ago, which looks flashy, but it's not so flashy to play. So let's see for what strats Hams goes here. So you have to build like a wizard target thing. Don't know how to describe it better. And Hams is placing player 2 at a specific spot, so you can actually queue two cutscenes together. So this cutscene, or it's not really a cutscene, it's more a camera pan, plays, and the next one will play immediately afterwards, as he would have some downtime where he needs to walk a bit. Let's see if he positioned himself correctly. If you see them walking up here, yeah, we know he got position correct. Skipping just a little bit, and he will go for fog skip here. So you're supposed to build more of those wizard target things and cure some animals, and this will lift in the fog, the black fog. But you can also launch here, and basically we haven't seen this kind of launch. He attempted first, like a pause spamming launch. If you roll and spam the pause button, you can actually also get a launch sometimes, just not as high and way less consistent. That's more than enough height, so you can actually go into the fog and turn around and activate the trigger. Nicely done here. This trigger for the next section is actually inside the door. So if you could find a way to actually clip into the door, we could skip the whole section here. Now, should be the final Azog fight. Yeah, it's the final Azog fight. And like before, it's a small room where you can't do that much. We have to press the buttons they prompt us with, and it's random which button it will be, but it's never the same button twice in a row. Okay, not much you can do to really speed this fight up. Just have to wait through it. And onto a small auto-scroller, which by the way also has an end level trigger, and it would finish the level, but it's actually in this part of the level, just the auto-scroller, and not at the final area here. There's the possibility that those two rooms are actually connected. We haven't, or I haven't checked for this, but this is the boss fight we have to sit through. We don't need any resources anymore. As you can see, the resource gathering part was really only at the beginning. But since we have to wait anyway, can use time to just gather some resources. looks like Hamster destroyed everything on the stage. Or everything he can destroy, actually, he destroyed. There are still 2 rocks, but you need a mining character to destroy them. Or like character with a pickaxe. And as he's showing off, he can't destroy them. This level gives you a really nice break because the next level is a really quick one. And then we're already at the final level. So it might be good that there's like a little bit of downtime so you can call your nurse, especially if you're running any percent. Or if you're running a longer category like this, has some downtime now. Can like refocus, maybe drink something, like take a sip of water. Like you also do as well. Stay hydrated. And almost done with this boss fight. You can see like the barrier gets smaller every time. Yeah, not much you can do here. Just have to wait. Almost done this level now. Build a final thing. Shoot at it with our wand or staff rather. And you reveal Sauron's back. And now we're going to onto doorstep. Like a really fun level to actually do ILs, in my opinion. And just getting it smooth and quick is super cool. Just doing a launch here to skip some hop movement. So you're supposed to go all the way around, get to this section here. What we can do, we just can launch over the mountains and like cut out some movement through Dale. They're pretty consistent body up launch. And there are quite a lot of backups actually. If you don't get the right height, this should get high enough. There's actually, I probably won't show it off because you got enough height. But if you're falling and you drop out of player 2, you get, it's showing it off. You actually get an additional launch. And we land out of bounds. And we can go to the stairs and go to the second section. And here's doing like a slam into the mountain. And for some reason, it actually launches you upwards a bit. And I did some testing with that. And it looks to be one of the only walls that actually work like this. Yeah, it skips like another body up spin launch. You can also do a V-sync launch. There's actually a double jump you can do That's really tough. And now just one more level. Now inside info. Final level of the game. Not really much you can do to speed up this section. You can do launches here, but the individual sections are pretty far apart actually from each other, and it probably wouldn't be faster anyway because they're really quick. Like launching down here wouldn't save that much. And DaHamster did like a charge attack here, so you can actually move a little bit quicker. Takes some time to actually charge up the attack, but then you're spinning around and you kind of break out of the forced rolling. It's like tiny bits like this that are used every now and then just to save an additional few seconds, but they will add up over time. In a 2-hour run, like it's either 15 levels, and you save 5 seconds each time because in each level, just because of small stuff like that, it's over a minute at the end saved. You can see that it actually moves quite fast by doing that. And I think 1 or 2 more sections. I think that's the final section, yeah. Once it gets to the Arkenstone here, the cutscene starts, and you can't skip this cutscene. Even if you have no cut in, still have to watch it. We believe it's because it's an actual movie they placed in, not just a normal cutscene. So you have to sit through this. So for, say, for any percentage, like comparison again, we found the trigger for this level, and it will place you right at the end of the whole level, and the last section is only a couple seconds long actually. Sadly, we can't reach it. We're still trying to find ways to get there, because it would be super cool, because you would also skip all of those cutscenes you're playing, that's playing right now. You skip all the stealth section at the beginning, the next section, which is basically a launch or 2 launches, and then a puzzle, then like a mini boss section, then another cutscene, and then you're at the end. It's quite a long cutscene. So here's the launch, and you're launching all the way to the left side of the room. Almost got all the way to the top. That would be best case scenario. And again, he's trying to get the right animation, so this one here. And he's going back there in like a small corner, try spinning to get the launch. It's quite a finicky one. Like sometimes it works super nice first try and you get super high launch. Sometimes it just isn't cooperating. Just kind of like a running theme of this game. This game is really cool strats, but they're also really hard, and sometimes the game doesn't cooperate and it feels like it's almost out of your control. But gets it rather quickly. So here is to shoot the targets to actually do a color code. It's red, blue, red. And you're supposed to break stuff and build stuff to actually reveal the color code. But if you know what it is beforehand, you can shoot it first. That's the second to last phase or scene here. He has to hit Smog with the bombs. And now to the final section, so get ready on time. As soon as he's on top, okay, almost done. Time is coming up shortly, so time. So 2:05:13 it looks like, which will be official world record. I know Hamster had a sub 2-hour run, but sadly the stream wasn't saved and the footage got lost. So this will be the board record now. Nicely set in a marathon setting. And if I'm correct, we'll actually have like a showcase of the out of bounds store, which would hit. So this save file only has the first level done, Great King of Middle Earth done, and Hamster will go on and show how you would do the any percent run, like how you go on, or how do you skip to looking for proof from a, like basically a new file. If there would be a way to actually skip out Great King of Middle Earth, go to the hub immediately, that would be great. Because we don't need to finish it per se to just like do the skips. The only thing or the only reason why I finish it is because we can't actually go to the hub world before we finish the level. Doing a Hobbit flight from the beginning over the riverbank. So taking it safe here. Basically what we did with this flight is we broke out of the intended section So you're not supposed to go here that early. And because of that, there are no like real barriers stopping us from going all the way to the end. There are some builds or stuff you have to do, but you can also just fly over those. So over movement takes a couple minutes. I want to say like 2 minutes to actually get to the trigger.
While we're waiting, can I sneak in a quick donation?
Yeah, sure.
We have a $30 donation from Senor that says, I won't be able to see the rest of LEGOthon as I'm busy, but shoutouts to Justin, Chimkin, Gluth, and many more for putting on a great show. GG DaHamster and Los, you're all a legend as always.
Thanks, Sinor.
Thanks for the donation, Senor.
So you navigate it here so we can do a launch to skip parts of the movement, take shortcuts, and you can see now the launches work how they're supposed to be done. And he will chain those launches together now. Get over the river here. It is almost at the end. So if you remember from the run, this was when he was down in Flake Town. He got teleported here and just jumped towards the bridge and it activated the level. Of course, or obviously, because you're not supposed to be here, this transition isn't there, but the actual, like a level transition. It's not the actual level transition, it's just the basic transition that's stored here. So I believe he will change VSync to VSync on or 30 Hertz because it gives you a little bit of a higher jump and it tries to line himself up a specific spot. And then it jumps forward, hits it first try really nicely. And he's now placed in this level. And as you can see, he's placed at the end of the level, where it just can jump down again. And he has to do this again for both players. Gets it nice. So it respawns at the bottom. Yeah, activates those two levers. And he can actually finish this level now. Doesn't have to do any of the first sections. And once he quits out or finishes the level actually, the game will save his progression. And how the checkpoint system works out in this game, it sees, oh, he's done looking for proof. The next level he should be able to do is the Necromancer. Let's load in the normal transition for Necromancer and continue from here on out. So if he goes back here now, he's right where he was at his no levels earlier run, and he can go all the way to the actual transition, no out of bounds transition for the Necromancer level, and start this level. From here on out, it will be the same as you saw in the no levels earlier on. You would just do Necromancer on the doorsteps and inside info. Yeah, I think that wraps everything up. That's about it. GG again to DaHamster. And next up will be Jimkin doing Lego Harry Potter 5 to 7, all Hogwarts students in peril. I believe it's also a no-cut run. So again, no cut allows you to skip all the cutscenes. And I wish good luck to Jimkin on his run, and I'll hand it over to him after a short break. So hope you stay tuned and have fun watching the end of LEGOthon. See you guys.